What is going on, everybody? I designed this puzzle to celebrate 20,000 views on the channel as we continue to grow. I meticulously put this together, so white to move and white to win. I'll give you 3 seconds to pause the video so you have as much time to figure out what you can before we get going any further in the video. 1, 2, and 3. Let's go through each piece one at a time. Process of elimination. We can tell that we need to promote one of the pawns, otherwise we won't have enough material to win. Start with the king. If the king moves first, that would allow black to capture our h-pawn immediately, threatening to take on the e-pawn next. We would have to move it out of the way because we don't have a piece to get in the way. Even if we brought in a check, it's just going to kind of prolong things. So if we move the pawn, black is just going to post up on e6, and the pawn will fall shortly after. So it's not going to be a king move first, and now we can move on to the bishop. The only bishop move we have, other than a quick check, which would just prolong things by one move, is bringing it to f4 to protect the h6 pawns. We would at least be able to eliminate one of black's pieces of their army. But that doesn't do much. Black can just capture, and even if we tried marching to promotion, black has the move king b6, threatening rook a1 checkmate. Even if we promoted, that's not going to do anything other than be able to prolong things by kamikazeing our queen to stall by one move. If we tried bringing our king over instead of moving the pawn so they can't checkmate us, then black would take our h-pawn first with the e-pawn shortly thereafter. So it's not going to be a bishop move, and the pawns are next. The h-pawn, if it tried marching, the black rook can just capture it, and there's nothing stopping the e-pawn from falling after. We can try moving our bishop to d6 to prevent the rook from going to e7, but then the rook can just come to h6. We'd have to move the pawn out of the way, but then the black rook comes to e6, and the pawn would fall after. Meaning the first proper move for the puzzle to get going is pawn to e7. Black would then have to bring the rook over to e1 to prevent us from promoting on e8, and it's our move from here. I'll give you 3 seconds to pause. 1, 2, and 3. The best move for us is simply to push the h-pawn. Now we have proceeded to get one move closer for each of the pawns. The whole point of bringing the pawn to h7 is so the bishop can't capture it now. Black's move from here is going to move the bishop to b2, so we can't bring the e-pawn up to promotion because the rook would capture, and we can't bring the h-pawn to promotion because the bishop would capture. I'll give you 3 seconds to pause the video. What is our move from here to save the day? 1, 2, and 3. It looks very counterintuitive at first glance, but the move is bishop to e5 exclam. It blocks both lanes, the bishop from covering h8 and the rook from covering anything on the e-file. If the rook captures the bishop, that would allow us to promote on h8, and if the bishop captures, that would allow us to promote on e8. The best move for black is actually capturing with the rook, and I'll give you 3 more seconds to pause the video here to figure out what our move is. 1, 2, and 3. Well, it's a no-brainer for this one. The pawn will go ahead and promote on h8, and from here, black will capture our other pawn to prevent any further damage. Our queen is under attack by the bishop, and this is the last move I'm going to have you move for the puzzle. I'll give you 3 more seconds to pause one last time to figure out our best move from here. 1, 2, and 3. For those that chose to take out the bishop because king rook versus king queen is a losing endgame for the rook, unfortunately this is not the right answer because it takes 59 moves to account for checkmate, and we don't take out the rook until after 50 moves, which is a draw. The best move is actually queen to d8 check. Once black moves or moves the rook to block, we take it out, and king queen versus king bishop is an easy checkmate in a lot less than 50 moves. Well, that concludes this video. I want to appreciate everyone that took the time to play it, and special thank you for all those that have been with me since near the beginning of my channel growing on this journey. Thank you very much. I will see you guys on the next video. Ciao.